Welcome to Caregiving during COVID-19. This webinar is aimed at people caring for someone who is living with dementia during the COVID-19 situation. You may be joining today for a number of reasons. You may be looking for strategies on how to manage your daily life while physical distancing or isolating, how to respond to behavior changes in the person that you're caring for, or how to manage your own self-care while you're caring for someone else. While all these topics will be covered today, I strongly encourage you to connect with the First Link Dementia Helpline if you find that you need to talk about anything you hear today after the webinar ends. And that phone number and our own contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation. My name is Sarah Evanishin. I'm a provincial coordinator with our Programs and Services Department at the Alzheimer's Society of BC. So today I'm going to focus on several topics that may have come up or may come up for you during the time of caregiving during COVID-19. So I'll talk about some of the challenges of providing care right now and how this affects you and the person that you're caring for. For example, there's been a big change in routine. So how you grocery shop has changed, how you visit with friends and family has changed, day programs are suspended, home care staff coming into the home are now wearing masks. This can be a source of anxiety or confusion for someone. How you visit with the person you're caring for in long-term care has changed. Perhaps there's a door between you now. So we'll talk a little bit about the effects of these changes. We're going to talk about how to respond to changes in behavior and communicate in a meaningful way. We'll talk briefly about some activities that can be done safely at home, but we do have a webinar where we dive a little deeper into this. So this webinar is coming up on April 21st at 2 p.m. In that webinar, we'll give some examples on activities that you can do and share some strategies for how you can set up the activity and adapt it as you go for success. And we'll be talking about how to practice self-care when what you have done before may have changed. So what does self-care look like for you now? So our first step is to take inventory. You may be finding yourself experiencing changes in the way that you typically respond to a situation. So take a moment to pay attention to how you are feeling in this moment or how you have been feeling in the past few days. You will likely feel a variety of feelings. They are neither good nor bad, although they may feel uncomfortable and you may wish that you didn't have them. Now let's take a moment to consider what may be causing those feelings. Caring for a person living with dementia takes tremendous time and effort. It is physical, mental, and emotional work. Compound this with the rapid changes we are living with in response to COVID-19, and you may find that the challenges you normally face as a caregiver have intensified. Some of your feelings arise from being unable to change the situation that you're in. Other feelings could arise from a sense that there's no end to the ongoing challenge of caregiving and to the restrictions of COVID-19. Acknowledge that you have a difficult job as a caregiver and that it's okay to have a multitude of strong, sometimes conflicting feelings about your role. Your feelings are normal, common, and they make sense. If you don't care for yourself, you may find yourself feeling worn out, impatient, and possibly angry or resentful. You will find it increasingly difficult to be the compassionate, patient person that you want to be. Learning how to communicate supportively and to respond to changes in behavior in yourself and the person that you're caring for can help you to adjust to the ongoing changes brought on by COVID-19 and build your resilience as a caregiver. We don't know when this pandemic will end, but we know it will. So until then, we can focus on what we have control over and do our best to try to let go of what we don't. How we communicate is a huge piece of how we respond to behavior. Our tone of voice, facial expressions, and gestures say much more than our words do and are increasingly important to people living with dementia, particularly as language becomes more challenging. So if I were yawning and speaking like I were bored, you'd be unlikely to listen to the rest of the webinar. It would indicate to you that I wasn't engaged with what I was doing, and you'd be much less likely to believe anything that I said. So pay close attention to your nonverbal communication when you're speaking with somebody who's living with dementia. First, set the stage. So try to make sure that the person can see and hear you before you start talking. Reduce background noise like the TV or the radio. Make eye contact, so you may need to sit or crouch down to get at eye level, and approach slowly and calmly. Standing over someone or rushing up on them can make anyone feel nervous and anxious. It's not a good way to start a conversation. If the person doesn't seem to notice you and it's appropriate to do so, you can use gentle touch to get the person's attention. So once you crouch down, putting your hand on their arm and then making eye contact and proceeding. And pay attention to the body language of the person before you start talking. Do they look afraid? Tired? Is this a good time? If the person loves watching Coronation Street, it'd probably be best to wait until after that show is over before you try to start up a conversation. Okay. Speak slowly and clearly. People living with dementia need much more time to process what is being said. So take longer pauses between sentences and be mindful of your tone and your pitch. Younger females tend to have higher pitched voices, and it can be more difficult to hear than a deeper voice. So pronounce your words clearly, use short sentences, familiar words, and if you do tend to have a higher pitched voice, try to lower your tone as best as possible. Give one message at a time and try to avoid open-ended questions. So offering one or two choices maximum makes it easier to remember the options given and to think of a response. Instead of asking, what would you like for breakfast? Ask, would you like toast for breakfast? That way I can give a simple yes or no. Or would you like tea or coffee? So I'm giving options, I'm giving the opportunity for choice and control, but they're limited so the person can remember. Okay. Show as you talk. So particularly important right now, of course, as we know, is washing your hands. If you want someone to wash your hands and this is a challenge, try directing them to the sink and saying, let's wash our hands now, as you start to wash your hands with them. So by showing the action while you're narrating it, this cues the person as to what to do. So even if they don't understand the words that you used, they can see what it is you're doing and follow along. Try to avoid arguing. This is a lose-lose situation, and you'll both end up feeling frustrated and likely won't achieve the outcome that you want. Instead, try to focus on the feeling that the person is sharing rather than the words. Validate how they feel and offer reassurance before redirecting the conversation or offering up a distraction. If the person appears stuck on a topic, try changing the activity or the environment, such as going for a walk. When the emphasis is on the person, behavior is not seen as a problem to be managed, but rather actions and expressions that need to be understood. So reframing how we perceive a behavior can help us to better understand why it is occurring and how to respond. Instead of seeing the behavior as a challenge, try to look at it as an opportunity to connect with the person. When we stop to consider the person, so who they are, what they enjoy, what their life history is, it becomes much easier to make this connection. All behaviors have a cause and a meaning. The first step to figuring out how to respond is to take a deep breath, take a step back and think, what is going on here? What is the person trying to tell me with this behavior? Okay. So behavior can be a physical expression of an unmet need. The person may be trying to tell you that they need something, but are having difficulty saying what it is that they need, such as a glass of water or to go to the bathroom. Or the behavior itself may be a way of meeting a need, such as babbling as a way of satisfying the need for conversation. Behavior can be a response to something in the environment that may be too loud, too cluttered, too dark, too confusing. So for example, going to the sink to wash your hands becomes much more daunting if you don't remember which way to turn the faucet to turn the water on, or how to make sure the water is not too hot or not too cold. We can make modifications to the physical environment itself to help the person, such as color coding the faucets or putting up signage in the washroom. This way the person goes into the environment and can know what is expected of them there. Okay. A person's behavior can be a response to a task that's given to them. Does the person understand what's being asked of them? So using the hand washing example again, because we are hearing this quite frequently from people, if the person ignores reminders to wash their hands frequently, it may be that they can't remember the steps for proper hand washing. So try washing your hands with them and narrate each action and demonstrate the steps as you go. So wash your palms and then the backs. We're going to do between the fingers. Don't forget the fingertips, and now the thumbs. Behavior may also be an attempt to communicate. The person with dementia may be trying to tell you something that they can't articulate because of changes in their ability to communicate. So someone who is feeling lonely or scared may shadow you around the house as a source of comfort rather than telling you that this is how they're feeling. Okay, so just some examples of changes in behavior you might have seen include some agitation or fearfulness of home care workers coming in wearing masks, maybe some confusion over seeing lineups outside stores, repetitive questions. Maybe the person keeps asking when you're going to a day program that you used to frequent, or when a family member is coming into the home. And you might find this exhausting, having to respond to these questions over and over when you're trying to cope with the changes yourself. So we'll talk a bit more about this when we come back to self-care. Okay, so while we don't have time to explore each behavior today, we will review some strategies for how to respond on the next slide. And if you haven't already seen the recorded session on understanding behavior, I strongly encourage you to visit our website to watch this video and our additional recordings on understanding dementia and communication. So we go into much greater depth on these topics. And we should have the link at the last slide there. Okay, and you can also call the First Link Dementia Helpline if you have additional questions about a specific behavior and are needing support. Several strategies can be particularly helpful when responding to a behavior. Validate the person. We all have a need to feel heard. Focus on validating the person's feelings rather than reminding them of facts. The behavior may be related to an unmet need for comfort, safety, or security, which can be difficult to express in words. So for example, our reality at this time is that it's critical to wash our hands often and practice physical distancing. So a person living with dementia may forget to do this or not understand the importance of it. Now, for many of us, the empty streets and the physical distancing restrictions are completely unprecedented and may feel surreal. It can be frustrating when the person that you're caring for repeatedly asks to visit a friend or frequently leaves the house, despite you reminding them that things have changed. And now, what they have been able to do for most, if not all of their life, is no longer allowed. So what do? First, take a few deep breaths. The best solutions come from a calm brain. Does the person appear frustrated, sad? They may be missing their friend and feeling lonely. So physical distancing measures are challenging for all of us, and you may be feeling similarly. Validate this feeling for the person. It's frustrating not being able to visit Sam, isn't it? I feel sad too. Okay. Offer comfort and reassure the person that things will be okay. We're only taking a break from visiting Sam. It won't be forever. We'll visit as soon as we can. If the person appears uncomfortable still, try to break the person's attention by redirecting or distracting them with a new topic or activity that is familiar and meaningful to them. It's frustrating not being able to visit Sam, isn't it? I feel sad too. It won't be forever. Would you help me set the table for dinner? We know that these are stressful times, and it is no doubt that you are feeling this yourself. But without meaning to, our stress may transfer over to the person you're supporting and possibly exacerbate any challenges that you may already be having. But by adapting the environment, adapting the way we communicate, lowering our own stress levels, and engaging the person with dementia in meaningful activities, we can lower their stress and enable them to function at the optimum level. With the physical distancing and isolating restrictions in place, you may find yourself with gaps in the day where outside activities used to be, such as day programs, visits with friends, or an exercise class. So where possible, try to supplement these activities with something similar in the home to maintain consistency in your day. So if you used to have an exercise class at 10 a.m., At home at 10 a.m., try to tune into a live exercise class online or put in an exercise video and do this activity together with the person so you keep that consistency in place. People living with dementia thrive on routine, and knowing what to expect next can greatly help with anxiety. And you don't need to be a recreation therapist to engage the person you're supporting in an activity that is meaningful to them. There are many things you can do within your home and around your immediate neighborhood that can bring quality to your life and the person that you're supporting. So, for example, going for a walk. If the person living with dementia tends to approach others or has trouble keeping that 2-meter or 6-foot distance, avoid busier parks or trails or go at slower times of day. Pull over on the sidewalk when you're passing someone, and be mindful of this when you're interacting with neighbors. Maybe give them a gentle reminder if you're having that driveway conversation. Make hand washing enjoyable. So when you wash your hands together, give an aromatic hand massage with lotion after if the person would enjoy this. You can choose a calming scent that's familiar to the person, such as lavender. And you may find with the overall increase in hand washing and hand sanitizing lately that this is a benefit that you can both enjoy. If you're noticing that the person you're supporting appears anxious more often, try a sorting activity or something productive, like sorting the laundry or washing dishes. If they had a construction background, perhaps sorting some nuts and bolts in a bowl might be something they enjoy. You know the person you're caring for best. So use your knowledge of the person to find activities that they enjoy doing and that you can both enjoy together while you're staying safe at home. And don't forget to laugh, have fun, and try to enjoy this time together as best as you can. Just a reminder, we do have an activities webinar that's more focused on this, where we go into greater depth on examples of activities that you can do and ways that you can set up an activity or adapt it as you go for success. This webinar is April 21st at 2 p.m. If you did miss the live recording, we will have it available on our webinar website. So that is alzbc.org/webinars. If you're finding that the person you're caring for is exhibiting a lot more repetitive behaviors, or that you're both finding the change in routine challenging, I strongly encourage you to check out this webinar. It is hard to adapt to the changes to daily life as a result of COVID-19, and acceptance does not come overnight. You may be feeling anxious, overwhelmed, sad, all of which are natural emotional reactions. For caregivers, these reactions can be compounded by pre-existing feelings of stress, worry, grief, and guilt. If you find yourself feeling down or reacting to things differently than you normally would, and you aren't quite sure why, it can help to take inventory of how you feel, as we did at the beginning of this webinar. So think about what may be causing you to feel this way. Do you have expectations of yourself or others that aren't being met? Consider how these expectations may be impacting your emotional well-being. For example, if you're expecting that others will drop off cooked meals without being asked, and they're not, your expectations may be causing resentment and anger. Find a way to make it easier for people to help you. Be clear about what it is that you're needing help with at this time. If you're feeling anxious about what may happen to the person living with dementia in the event that something happens to you, create a care plan. So record the person's schedules, any meals they like, information about their life history, care services that they're receiving, contact numbers of healthcare providers, and the location of pertinent legal documents. Make sure all this information is accessible for someone if they were to come into the home to provide care. So this may be as simple as putting a little sticky note on your fridge door, directing someone where they can find this information in your home. Okay. Maybe have a journal about the person, and when you have a few minutes, just jot down some information about them. This will be very helpful if anyone needs to come into the home to provide care, to pick up. Okay. And recognize that you are doing the best that you can. No one comes into this as the perfect caregiver, and we all have bad days. The COVID-19 situation is unprecedented, and it will take some time to adjust and to figure out new routines and activities. Try to remember to be kind to yourself as you figure it all out. As much as possible, try to find ways to take a break within your home. Read a heartwarming story while the person with dementia sleeps, or have a family member occupy them on the phone while you take a shower. Inserting these pauses into your day, no matter how short they may be, gives your body and your mind a chance to slow down and rest. And ask for help. For many people, this is much easier said than done. Often, caregivers feel uncomfortable reaching out and asking for support or help. You may not want to impose, or you may be concerned about how the task is done, but consider, are these reasons logical or rational? Are they appropriate, especially now given the current situation? You may be surprised how many people are happy to help deliver groceries if this is a challenge for you. Some community organizations, such as United Way or local seniors organizations, have more formalized supports in place to connect you to others in the community who are willing and able to help. Try asking someone to bring over a meal or 2 or 3 or 5 and leave it outside your door for you to ease the demand of preparing food. Okay, so it's one more thing lifted off your plate. Ask a family member or a friend to be your information finder. So this person can be responsible for providing you with important updates to physical distancing measures or closures, allowing you to take a break from the news. Call a friend or join a tele-support group to share how you're feeling with those going through a similar experience. It can really help to have someone who understands and can laugh or cry alongside you. And remember that prioritizing your own self-care can help you stay healthy and provide the care that the person living with dementia needs. Finding ways to continue doing the activities that you enjoy within this new normal is one way in which you can increase your resilience to cope with it. So now I'm going to ask you to consider doing 2 things. Okay, so first find a sticky note or other piece of paper and write down the answers to 2 questions. What is one key piece of information or learning that stood out for you today? What one thing are you going to try to do differently now that you have that information? Okay, so one key piece of information or learning that stood out for you, and one thing that you're going to try to do differently with that information. Place your sticky note somewhere where you will see it over the coming days, so on the fridge, in your purse or your wallet, as a reminder of what you learned and how you're going to try to apply it. If you live with a person with dementia who's not aware of their own disease, you may need to be sensitive to the location that you choose. If you have any questions at all about some of the information that you've heard here today, or questions about supporting somebody who's living with dementia, please don't hesitate to call the First Link Dementia Helpline. Monday to Friday between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. for the English line. There is also a Cantonese and Mandarin line and a Punjabi line that are available from 9 to 4. All these numbers are up on our website. We also have a list of upcoming webinars scheduled, alzbc.org/webinars, and you can find a link to past recorded webinars on that page as well. Okay, so thank you all for joining us today. Stay safe.